Guys, so today we're going to be making some quick and easy Mexican chicken. We're also going to be talking about food safety throughout this process. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to want to do is wash our hands for 20 seconds. So let's go ahead and do that. Turn the water on, get our hands wet, get some soap, and scrub. Then we want to make sure we dry them off thoroughly. You can also use gloves. I do not happen to have any. If I did have some, I would be using them. It is definitely not a bad idea, and it definitely helps with food safety. So now that we have washed our hands, we can start preparing our chicken. So the first step is to preheat the oven to 375 degrees. So I'm going to step over and go ahead and do that. I'm going to hit bake, and then I'm just going to set it to 375 and hit the start button. In the meantime, we are going to season our chicken and get everything else ready. So the second step is to heat a grease skillet to medium. So let's go ahead and spray our skillet over here. And we will get that heated up to medium. In the meantime, we are going to season the chicken. So, to season the chicken, we are going to need a 4th teaspoon of minced garlic, a 4th teaspoon of salt, pepper, and cumin. So I'm actually going to combine all of them into this bowl, and then once I have my seasonings combined, I will take the seasoning from the bowl and season my chicken. So I have pre-portioned out everything already. This is also known as mise en place, and it just means prepping everything ahead of time, having things measured out and ready to go. So here's our 4th teaspoon of minced garlic, and I'm just going to place that in the bowl. And then I am going to go ahead and rinse it before I use the salt, pepper, and cumin, just to make sure everything's not mixing weird together. So now that I've added the garlic, I'm going to go ahead and add the salt, pepper, and cumin. And then I'm just taking a spoon and just going to kind of mix it together in this bowl. So here's everything. And then I'm going to go ahead and place this on my chicken. I forgot to mention that the serving size for this is 2. The recipe is linked, however, the recipe itself calls for 4 people. I just cut it in half because I'm not going to eat 4 chicken breasts by myself, and 2 is way better for me to eat. So now let's go ahead and season our chicken now that I've mixed it all together. I'm just going to use the same spoon again. Let me tilt you down. And now I'm just going to place it onto my chicken breast. I'm also just seasoning one side. If you really want to season both sides, you're more than welcome. That's a personal preference. I just prefer to only season one side. So now that we have heated our pan to medium and our chicken is seasoned, we're going to go ahead and put the chicken into the pan and brown it on both sides. We're also going to want to make sure it reaches a temperature of 165 degrees. So it's just been about 5 minutes on one side. I do want to make quick mention before we flip them to the other side that you will notice that I have an above vent. This above vent is currently on. I have it on low. I could put it on high if I felt like it was kind of putting out a lot, but it's not putting out too much, so I just went ahead and kept it on low. And then I also have an overhead light on as well, and this helps me to better see the food and things like that. So it's been 5 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and flip the chicken over to the other side and allow it to cook for another 5. And then we'll check the internal temperature of the chicken to make sure it's reached 165 degrees. This is also known as the critical control point. So it's been about another 5 minutes. I've gone ahead and flipped it again, but I am going to go ahead and check the internal temperature of the chicken. You want to make sure that you put it in the thickest part of the chicken, which is usually right in the middle, and don't poke all the way through. So let's see. So our thermometer is actually reading above 165, so that tells us the chicken is done. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off, and I'm going to take our chicken and place them into this glass casserole dish. Don't mind my other chicken in here. This is just me cooking myself a lunch. So now that we've browned our chicken on both sides and cooked it to an internal temperature of 165 degrees, we've now transferred it into our glass casserole dish, and we're going to place the salsa and cheddar cheese on top with the salsa first. Both is a ½ cup measurement, and like I mentioned earlier in the video, I've already got this ready to go. So we're just going to pour that over the top. Just like that, and then we're going to go ahead and just top it off with some cheddar cheese. Yum, this looks delicious. And then I'm going to go ahead and place that in the oven. If you remember at the beginning of the video, the first step we did was preheat the oven to 375 degrees. So my oven is ready. I will place this in for about 15 to 20 minutes or until the cheese is bubbly. So while we're waiting for our chicken to cook, I just kind of want to do a general overview of what we talked about today and kind of some simple food safety rules. So the very first thing we did before even touching the chicken or anything else, we washed our hands, which is really, really important to make sure that we're not spreading bacteria. You'll also notice that I have a hat on, my hair's back. I'm wearing short sleeves, that way I don't get food and stuff all over my long sleeves. Long sleeves probably aren't a horrible idea though, especially with cooking the chicken on the stove. If it starts like sparking and things like that, you don't want to get the grease and oil and all that on your hands or your skin. That might burn. Speaking of that, you also want to make sure you're wearing closed-toed shoes, which I will show you what I am wearing. They're pretty much like tennis shoes, but they are closed-toed. And then I'm just wearing jeans. That way, if anything were to pop off, like the oil or something, it's likely to not go through my pants because my pants aren't super thin. We also practice what we call HACCP, which is Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point, which was when we kind of talked about that 165 degree internal temperature of the chicken when we took the thermometer and stuck it in the thickest part, which is typically the middle, and recorded the temperature there. I've also got this nice, fun little handout that I'm actually going to be sending home with you guys today that also summarizes everything we talked about. It's also got the recipe on it as well as the link to the original recipe. So basically what it says is that following proper food safety guidelines, it helps us to prevent foodborne illnesses from occurring. Safe food handling also allows us to enjoy the fullest nutritional benefits of the food, which is super awesome. Safe food handling can also save money and prevents it from spoiling and going bad or anything like that. Utilizing safe food handling also sets a good example for others. So if others see you doing something, they're more likely to implement it themselves, which is great because we want everybody to be practicing safe food handling. We also didn't mention this, but it is definitely something that is good to talk about that is also included in food safety. You notice that I had seasoned the chicken on a cutting board. If we were to prepare some vegetables with this dish, like you could do some peppers or something and throw it in there in the casserole dish, we would want to make sure that we're cutting up the peppers on a separate cutting board. Otherwise, cutting it up on the same cutting board as the raw chicken could cause cross-contamination. And by definition, the Oxford Dictionary, cross-contamination is the process by which bacteria or other microorganisms are unintentionally transferred from one substance or object to another with harmful effect. Cross-contamination between raw and cooked food is actually the cause of most illnesses. So we really want to make sure that we're not doing that. So hopefully today you learned just some general food safety, a little bit more about HACCP. Maybe you kind of already knew some of this stuff, so maybe it's a little bit of a review for you, which is perfectly fine. And then hopefully you understand or have a review of cross-contamination. I will check back in when our chicken is done. Our chicken is done. I'm going to go ahead and pull it out of the oven. You'll notice I've got 2 oven mitts, that way I don't burn my hands. And here it is. Awesome, that looks delicious. I'm going to go ahead and put it on top of the stove to cool. And I'm going to turn off my oven and then put my oven mitts away. So I am super excited to try this. It looks delicious. I hope you guys learned something new today. Also, if you end up having leftovers of this, you want to make sure that you store it at 40 degrees Fahrenheit in an airtight container, and it can be stored for up to 3 to 4 days. Thanks, guys. Bye.